G'day! So I'm going to talk a bit about my personal opinions of tanking and the mindset of tanking and what it means to be a tank, how I try to become a better tank, all that sort of stuff. While you're listening, if there's anything that you agree or disagree with, feel free to leave a comment below. I love opening up discussions in these kind of videos. So this is just going to be me telling it from my perspective, from my opinion, and I'm not going to be editing any of this audio. I might edit out a car noise or something every once in a while. I had a lot of planes going over my head today. It's been driving me crazy trying to record audio, and every 3 minutes you hear this. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, absolutely. This is my opinion, my personal experiences with tanking. So if you disagree, I'd love to know why. If you could maybe explain your experiences in the comments below, shall we say? At the same time, if you agree, more power to you. So my personal opinion of tanking is actually a little bit different from, I've seen a lot of videos of people saying, what does it mean to be a tank? How do you be a good tank? And there's something inherent in their attitudes toward tanking that I actually don't agree with. And these are very, very skilled tanks. So if I was in their group, I would love to have them. Don't get me wrong. I would love to be in groups with these people. However, I personally, from my own tanking experience, I don't actually agree with some of the things that they say. So I thought, why not do a video about it, ramble on for a few minutes, and then, maybe open up some discussions about it. So my personal experience, just to give you a bit of backstory, I have played every single tank. At the moment in WoD, I have every tank leveled. I don't play them all because, just to be honest, I haven't been doing a lot with alts this expansion, which is strange because I've always been into alts, and for some reason, just WoD, I leveled all the tanks, and it's like, well, I think I'll just stick with my druid, I don't think it's not so much that I don't enjoy the other tanks, it's just, I don't know, WoD as a whole, I feel like I can do enough on the one character and that's it. So it's strange, it's a strange experience, this expansion. But prior to that, in vanilla, I wasn't a tank in vanilla for the majority of it. Toward the end, I was a warrior tank, but I didn't start sort of main tanking until Burning Crusade. So prior to that, I was a healer. I was a priest healer in vanilla. Toward the end, I was a prot warrior. I continued being a prot warrior into Burning Crusade. At the same time, I was also alt. I had an alt as an OT was my druid tank, which I didn't like as much because they were considerably more squishy than prot warriors at the time. And then into Wrath of the Lich King, I was a prot pally. And then, what came after Wrath? Kata. Kata, I was a druid tank again because they were maze balls. And then in Mop, I actually went to a monk healer. I didn't tank much in Mop at all. And then in WoD, yes, in WoD I've been a druid, so a guardian druid. So, I mean, throughout all the expansions, I've always had a tank, whether it's been my main character or not, it's kind of been the thing. So even in Mop, when I was a healer, I still had my tanks as well. And in Wrath, of course, I was also tanking on DKs as well. So I've basically had all the tanks throughout all the expansions. And yeah, I love tanking. I mean, I love healing as well. I love healing, I love tanking, I love DPSing. I like doing all the roles. And I think, personally, my view is if you want to be a better tank, play everything. Because not only do you learn different skills on different tanks, but you also learn how to be a better tank when you're a healer. I learned heaps and heaps of how to be a good tank from being DPS, just queuing as a DPS, either because there's a bad tank that does something and I take a lot of unnecessary damage, when you've got like frontal cones and a tank turns frontal cone mechanics into the melee, that kind of thing, so avoiding that. So from that experience I learned to try and keep mobs facing the same way as much as possible, minimize them moving around so that melee can predict where to go, where to stand, that kind of thing. As a healer, knowing, okay, this tank is using a lot of cooldowns. These cooldowns make a huge difference because the last tank that I was healing wasn't using any cooldowns and it kept dying, so, seeing these sort of fights from different angles really helped me to at least feel like I'm improving as a tank. I mean, I don't consider myself to be a top tier tank. I think that I'm constantly learning new things, and that's just my general approach to life, is to, lifelong learners and all that sort of stuff. Sorry, occupational hazard. So going back to what it means to be a tank, there are three main prongs to my approach to tanking. The first one is having a tanking mindset. The second thing is knowing how to pace your group, so controlling the speed. And the third thing is knowledge of the fights. So with the third one, knowing the fights really comes down to, the importance of it comes down to where in an expansion you are, because at the beginning of an expansion, people are totally fine if a tank joins the group, says, look, I haven't done this yet. I didn't get into the beta. I know we're a month into the expansion, but I just have not seen this fight yet. And they're like, yeah, totally cool. At the end of an expansion, if you jump in and you say, look, I haven't done this before, they're like, what? We've just had, a year and you've never done this. So, I certainly find that knowledge of the fights really depends on where you are in an expansion. So at the beginning of the expansion, I just try to learn as much as I can by doing it. Toward the end of the expansion, I need to make sure I know more before I actually go in, that kind of thing. With the other two, so the tanking mindset and how to pace the group, this is where I kind of disagree with a lot of really skilled tanks. I've seen some YouTube videos where people have talked about their opinions of tanking and what it means to be a tank and your role in a group as a tank. And they all say this one word that I actually don't agree with. They all say that tanking is about control, that you are essentially the captain of the ship. You are leading this group through these treacherous waters with, success riding on your shoulders. If you do your job well, this group will win, that kind of thing. And I don't agree with the idea of control. I think early on, in previous expansions, yes. Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, where mechanics were so dangerous to melee or to ranged DPS or to healers that if they did something wrong, they died. So there really was a case of you had to step in before they could do something wrong. So you really did have to control the group. You had to mark things, you had to tell them, you need to stand here because if you don't, you're going to die. That kind of thing. However, sort of in the last couple of expansions, certainly in WoD, and even to an extent in MoP, it really sort of came down to, especially with WoD, since threat really isn't a thing these days, it's almost a case of your role. I guess what I'm trying to say, I don't believe in the current expansion, in the current state of WoW, control is, I think, the wrong approach to tanking in groups. And I'm talking about like dungeon tanking. I'm not talking about raid at this point. I'm just focusing on dungeons. I think control is the wrong approach because it is so easy. The content is so easy that all you need to do is have a gear. If you are a healer if you outgear something as a healer, if you outgear something as DPS, you really don't need a tank, to be honest. Like, I've done groups where it's been 4 DPS and a healer. I've done groups where it's just been 5 DPS with self-healing. It is really common and really easy to do things without a tank. So, in my opinion, when I do tank things, I don't think of it as I'm controlling the group. I think of it as I'm going to adapt to this group of people. So in some groups, yes, if they don't know what they're doing, they're on alt or something, they've come into an expansion late, they've heard about Legion, they've bought WoD so they can go into Legion, that kind of thing. If I'm with inexperienced players, yes, then okay, I'll lead the group and I'll mark them and I'll mark things and, you know, let them know what to do. If they ask for that information, others just say, we just want to do it. It's like, totally cool, you know, I'll just just follow me, here we go. However, if you've got experienced players, I just really, you know, I look at who I'm with and I change my tanking to fit them. So adaptation really is what I'm trying to say. It's not control, it's adaptation. So for example, if I have a weaker healer, say for example, they have really shitty gear, they don't know anything about stat weights, they just have had really bad RNG luck for loot, then I'm going to tank differently. I'm going to maybe pull less. I'm going to maybe, you know, stun some things that I normally wouldn't stun. On the other hand, if I've got a healer that's sitting there in mythic gear, I'm going to pull everything. You know, screw it. We're going to go, you know, I'm not going to say balls to the wall, boobs to the wall. We're going to go for it, you know. Wow, that's a really unpleasant analogy. The same thing is that if I have squishy DPS, I know that even though my healer might be great, even though I might be great, well, great over-gearing the instance, shall we say, if the DPS is squishy, there are fights and there are mechanics where DPS will take unavoidable damage, and if they're squishy, I can't pull everything in the instance because they're going to die. So Grimrail Depot, for example, I sometimes, just for the funsies, I pull everything in like that second carriage before the second boss. You know, I pull all 3, sometimes 4 packs. I go from one train to the other and I pull everything. The problem is that there are abilities that stun the healer. There are abilities that are painful for melee. You've got the gunners spewing fire all over the place. You've got the Cinder something or others who drop those flaming circles. There's a lot of stuff that makes it really difficult for DPS. In addition to, if they stand at range, they get stunned. So you've got a healer who's stunned, you've got DPS that are standing and shit, and you've got a tank that's pulled everything. So there are times, yes, usually a rogue will die in that situation. That's just because I haven't adapted to the group. I've pulled to myself and my healer's abilities and not to the squishy DPS. So that's what I'm trying to get at. You know, my approach is that I look at who is it that I'm with, what's their DPS like, what's their gear like, what are their heals like, and then I'll pull accordingly. So I'll either pull everything or I'll pull very little. This kind of goes into then pacing the group. So what I'm mentioning before, you know, being able to read almost body language, because people don't say these things. Some people, you'll have a healer who is so stressed and they won't say anything because they're too busy trying to heal you. I've had my experience myself, that I've been on a healer who is leveling. She was 92, she had really crap gear, I didn't have any crafted items, and she was healing a monk. It was a monk who was also crap geared, running around with intellect trinkets and necks. So suboptimal gearing, and he was pulling like he was a mythic geared tank. You know, he was pulling everything. This is in Orkandun, and I was so busy just trying to keep him alive and trying to, you know, just conserve my mana as much as possible. I couldn't actually stop to type and say, dude, you need to slow down. It was only when he died eventually, because he just pulled so much. He pulled everything. I got stunned by something, and then he died. And I said, dude, now that I have a moment, can you slow down? Because, you know, I've got crap gear, you've got crap gear, we don't have the DPS in this group, and you're just pulling like we're, you know, totally overgearing this, and I can't keep up. And he's like, it's just all right, just get some mastery, you know, you'll be right, you know. So that situation, that's an example of a tank that didn't adapt. Yeah, he just wanted to control the group, but he didn't adapt to the situation. So as a tank myself, I look at body language. So I'm doing air quotes, which you can't see, but what I mean by body language is when a healer, the position of the healer, if the healer is at the back of the group, and they're stopping and sitting and drinking every pull, then I slow down. If they're at the front of the group and they're sitting there they don't dip below 90% mana, nobody's died, people are predominantly above 50% health, then I'll pull more. Also inspecting gear, there's a nifty add-on that allows you to very quickly see what the eye level is of people. So those kind of things can give you a bit of an idea of whether you can push a group from the get-go or whether you need to sort of test them out first. DPS, when DPS pulls things, either a hunter with barrage, Grimrel being the prime example of where hunters and barrages happen a lot. Misdirects, when you've got a hunter that just misdirects immediately and then starts shooting everything, MDs it onto you, rogue with tricks, that kind of thing. So in that kind of situation, what people with a control mindset typically do is they say, right, you've got a hunter who's barraging, fine, I'm just going to sit here, I'm just going to let them die. I'm going to get rid of MD, I'm going to get rid of tricks, and those people are just going to die, I'm going to sit here and wait. I, on the other hand, I look at their gear. So if they can pull stuff and they're pulling the numbers and they don't die, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to reduce the damage that they take. So I'm going to stun things. I might, if I'm a warrior, demoralizing shout, I might even provide some off heals. If they're getting us through this dungeon, I'm going to go with it. I don't care. Because the whole point is that we want to get through this dungeon as quickly as possible. Prime example, leveling my warrior in, I think it was Upper Blackrock Spire normal, so he wasn't geared for heroics, and there was a heroic geared, like somebody doing probably heroic HFC at the time. No, not HFC, heroic BRF, sorry. And he was in there, he was pulling something like 80k DPS at the time, which was huge. He was a shaman, enhancement shaman. And I just said, dude, just go for it. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna shockwave things. I'm gonna, stun as many things as I can. Just go nuts, dude. So my role there wasn't actually to tank. It was just to reduce the damage that he was taking, to stun things that I could. Some things I taunted because I could, but I adapted to that situation. On the flip side, if the people are pulling and they're dying and they have really crap DPS, I will let them die. I will ask them, look, you're pulling too much. I have crap gear. You have crap gear. What you're doing right now is killing us. So you can continue to do it, but I'm not going to help you here. So they usually then, okay, well, fine, I'll just wait. And then it goes fine. So it really sort of comes down to, with DPS pulling, is it hindering progress through the group? If it is, then I'm going to try and curb their behavior. If it isn't, if it's enhancing our progression through the group, then I'm just going to go with it and do what I can, contribute how I can as a tanking class. Also things like when people know mechanics. So if I'm in a group where, regardless of gear, if people know what to do, I'll push them a little bit further. So I'll pull a little bit more so they can kill a little bit more if I know that stuns are going to happen when they should happen. Things like, I've mentioned this in my Upper Blackrock Spire pug video, that earlier tanking video I did a while ago, where I had a paladin who knew when to stun things and when to interrupt things. So I shared the load with him. Rather than me going in there with the control, quote unquote, mindset, I need to stun everything, I need to interrupt this stuff. It's like, no, he can do it because he knows how. So, sharing the load with people who know what to do. Only picking up the slack when you've got a group where they don't know. Again, adapting to the situation. I guess that's kind of my approach to it. So it really boils down to, you can be a skilled tank with the mindset of control, and sure, that works. I mean, you get a good group, you get a good tank, absolutely go for it. Or you can, my personal opinion is to approach a group prepared to adapt to the situation, and then using my abilities that I have as a tank, I'm going to do whatever it takes to help us progress through more quickly. And that's just my personal opinion of it. If you agree or if you don't agree, as I said at the beginning of this video, I'm trying to keep it under 20 minutes. Please leave a comment down below. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your morning, day, afternoon, evening, whatever the case may be. We'll hopefully see you in the next video.